This was Ohio. Not a jungle, not another planet. Ohio, the state with the highways and the corn and the Waffle Houses 12,000 years ago. And the animals that lived in Ohio are not guesses. They are bones, pulled out of Ohio bogs and Ohio caves, sitting in Ohio museums right now. So here is the idea behind this video. Take a trail camera, the kind people strap to a tree to see what is coming into the backyard at night, and mount it about a meter up on a beech tree at the edge of a clearing in central Ohio. Leave that camera on the tree for 1 year, 12,000 years ago. Then come back and go through the card. Every single thing that walks past this camera is an animal we've actually dug out of the ground in this state. And the first capture on the card is in March, at 4 in the morning, down at the water. Something is at the edge of the water, and the camera catches it side on, low to the ground, hunched over. The infrared flash blows the fur out white. It has a broad, flat tail and a heavy, blunt head with 2 orange-brown front teeth that are enormous. The front teeth alone are as long as your hand. It is a beaver. It weighs about as much as a large man, roughly 100 kilograms, and from nose to tail it runs about 2.5 meters. This is a beaver the size of a black bear. And here is the part that makes it an Ohio animal in the most literal way. Its scientific name is Castorides ohioensis. The first specimen ever described came out of the ground in Ohio, which is why the state is written into the species name. This animal is named after the place your camera is standing in. But there is something strange about it, and it comes down to those teeth. A modern beaver has front teeth shaped like chisels, flat on the cutting edge, self-sharpening, built for one job, which is going through a tree trunk. Look at the front teeth of the giant beaver, and the shape is wrong for that. The giant beaver incisors are longer and blunter, curved, more like a set of spikes than a set of chisels. They are not good tools for felling timber, which means the picture almost everyone has of a giant beaver is probably wrong. There is no evidence Castorides built dams, no giant lodges, no giant dams, nothing in the fossil record. The chemistry of its bones points toward soft aquatic plants, the stuff growing in shallow water. So the giant beaver was very likely not an engineer at all. It was a huge rodent that waded around in marshes eating waterweed, and it just happened to be built like a bear. The camera does not see it again after April. April, 9:40 at night, and the clearing is busy. A group of animals comes through the clearing together, and this time the camera fires 4 or 5 times in a row because they keep moving. The animals look like pigs, but wrong. Long legs, narrow build, deep chest, and a head that is oddly flattened along the top with a long snout. These are peccaries, relatives of the animals that live in Texas and Central America today, but bigger, leggier, and adapted to cold. They moved in herds, and we know that because of how they are found. In Ohio caves, they turn up in groups, dozens of individuals in one place, which is what happens when a herd shelters somewhere and does not come back out. That cave full of peccaries is worth pausing on. Most of what we know about the animals in this video comes from 2 kinds of place, bogs and caves. Ohio was covered by ice, and when the ice pulled back, it left behind thousands of kettle holes, depressions that filled with water and turned into bogs. A bog is an almost perfect grave. No oxygen, no scavengers, acid water. Bones that fall into an Ohio bog stay whole. And the ice is the reason any of this is here, so it is worth 1 minute. At its maximum, the Laurentide ice sheet covered roughly the northern 2/3 of Ohio. A wall of ice more than 1 kilometer thick sitting on top of Cleveland, Toledo, and Columbus. When it retreated, it did not just melt away politely. It bulldozed the land flat, dumped everything it had been carrying in a long ridge across the middle of the state, and left buried blocks of ice that melted out later and became the kettle holes. Drive across Ohio today and you cross that line without noticing it. The flat, absurdly fertile farmland in the north and west is ground the glacier scraped and covered. The hilly, wooded, unglaciated country in the southeast is land the ice never reached. That boundary is why Ohio looks like two different states, and it was drawn 12,000 years ago by the same ice that these animals were living at the edge of. May, 6 in the morning, first light in the clearing. Something enormous is standing in the frame, and the first thing you notice is the head. It is a moose, sort of. Long legs, long face, the heavy shoulders and low-hanging muzzle of a moose. But the antlers are not moose antlers. Instead of two broad flat palms, they split into complicated forks that go out sideways and then split again, a tangle of points spreading more than 1.5 meters across. Nothing alive today has antlers arranged like this. This is the stag moose, and it is one of the animals people find hardest to believe, because it is not a mashup of two familiar things. It is a genuine third option, a member of the deer family that went in a direction nothing has repeated since. And nobody is sure what that antler shape was for. Antlers are display equipment. They are grown, carried through a season and dropped, and the ones that get complicated usually get complicated because females are looking at them. But an antler that branches sideways in a tangle is also a bad thing to carry through dense forest, which is a hint about the ground the stag moose was actually using. The Ohio finds tend to come out of bog and marsh deposits rather than deep woodland, and a wide-open wetland is exactly where a wide-open rack costs you nothing. The antlers are a description of the habitat as much as of the animal. June, 2:55 in the afternoon, bright daylight, and the camera fires because something has walked in close. At first, the frame just goes dark. Not black, brown hide filling the entire image. The camera is 1 meter off the ground, and this animal's leg has passed within a couple of meters of the lens. Then, the animal moves back, and you get the whole shape. Shoulder height about 3 meters. A long, low body covered in coarse reddish hair. A trunk. And 2 tusks that come out of the upper jaw, sweep forward and curve up and inward toward each other, 4 meters long, the tips almost touching in front of the animal's face. This is a mastodon, and if this video has one animal that belongs to Ohio more than any other, it is this one. More than 300 mastodon finds have come out of Ohio soil. Farmers hit them with plows. Construction crews hit them digging ponds. There is a real chance that somewhere within an hour of wherever you are watching this, if you are in Ohio, there is one still down there. And the difference between a mastodon and a mammoth is the thing to lock in. Because the two get mixed up constantly, and the difference is entirely about food. A mammoth has grinding teeth, flat surfaces with ridges built to shear tough grass. A mastodon has cone-shaped cusps, like a row of blunt mountain peaks, built to crush twigs and leaves and branches. Mammoths were lawnmowers, mastodons were tree strippers, and that is why Ohio, which was forest and spruce, was full of them. We know exactly what Ohio mastodons ate, and not by guessing. In 1989, a crew digging a pond at a golf course in Newark, Ohio hit bone. What came out was one of the most complete mastodons ever found in North America, and inside the rib cage was a mass of preserved plant material. The actual gut contents of the animal still there. Spruce twigs, leaves, seeds, swamp plants. Not a reconstruction of the last meal of a mastodon. The last meal of that mastodon itself. And Ohio had the other one too. The camera would catch it in July, out in more open ground away from the trees, taller at the shoulder, higher domed skull, a sloping back, coarse hair, and tusks that curve much more dramatically, sweeping out and then spiraling back inward. The woolly mammoth was here as well, and the two lived in the same state without competing much, because they were eating completely different things in completely different places. The mammoth stayed out where the grass was. The mastodon stayed in the trees. Ohio had room for both because Ohio had both kinds of ground. August, 2:31 in the morning. This is the capture that would end up on the news. The frame is filled by an animal standing on its hind legs, square to the camera, both eyes burning white in the infrared. Its head is above the top of the trunk the camera is strapped to. Standing on its hind legs, the bear is somewhere around 3.5 meters tall. It is a bear, the short-faced bear. And that name is misleading, because the face is not really short. It is that the snout is deep and broad rather than long, which gives it a strangely flat, almost cat-like profile from the front. The thing that makes the short-faced bear genuinely odd is not the size. It is the legs. This bear was long-limbed in a way no living bear is. A grizzly is a low, heavy, thick-legged animal. The short-faced bear stood tall and rangy, with proportions closer to a big cat than to a modern bear. For decades that got read one way: a fast, long-legged hunter running down horses on open ground. That running hunter version has been getting picked apart. Newer work on the limb mechanics suggests it was not built for a sustained chase, and chemical analysis of the bones points toward a diet more mixed than pure meat. The current picture is less action movie and more brutal opportunist, an animal big enough to walk up to any other predator's kill and simply take it. And we know the short-faced bear was here in Ohio. There's a cave in Wyandotte County, Ohio, called Sheridan Cave. Water carried animals into it, or they fell in, and the floor of that cave preserved a slice of Ohio at the end of the Ice Age. Short-faced bear came out of Sheridan Cave, so did giant beaver, so did the peccaries. Sheridan Cave is a large part of the reason we can say this video is about Ohio specifically, and not just about North America in general. Sheridan Cave is worth knowing about because of how ordinary its discovery was. It is a sinkhole cave in farm country, and for a long time the only thing anyone knew about it was that it was a hole in the ground. When it was properly excavated, the sediment turned out to be layered, a slice of time, sealed and undisturbed, with the end of the Ice Age preserved in order from bottom to top. Animals fell in, or were washed in, and nothing came along to scatter them. That is why one cave in Wyandotte County can carry so much of this video. It is not that Sheridan Cave had more animals than anywhere else. It is that Sheridan Cave kept them in order. September, and the captures on the card change character. Instead of one animal, the camera starts firing repeatedly through the night, and the same shapes keep coming back. Medium-sized, long-legged, moving in a loose line. Caribou. Reindeer in Ohio. That single fact repositions the whole video, because the animal you associate with Lapland and Christmas cards was walking through Ohio, and it was there because Ohio was cold. The ice sheet had covered most of the state, and even after it started pulling back, the land near its edge was spruce forest and open tundra-like ground. Ice Age Ohio was not a warm place with some big animals in it. It was a cold place, and the animals were the animals of a cold place. October, 7 at night, and something is climbing a tree in the frame. The camera catches it at the base of a tree, upright, front limbs up on the trunk, hauling a branch down toward its mouth. It is shaggy, thick-bodied, and it has claws on its front feet that are long and curved and clearly not for walking. This is a ground sloth, a relative of the giant sloths of South America, smaller than those but still in the range of a large bear, and this one has an unusual place in American history. Its bones were the reason a sitting American politician got into paleontology. In 1797, Thomas Jefferson was given a set of enormous claws found in a cave, and he wrote a paper about them. He got the animal wrong. He thought the claws belonged to a giant lion still living somewhere in the unexplored West, and he told Lewis and Clark to keep an eye out for it. The ground sloth was named after Jefferson anyway, Megalonyx jeffersoni. There's a giant sloth in the fossil record of the eastern United States, carrying a president's name because he was wrong about it in print. December, 3 in the morning, and the card is nearly full. And the last capture on this card is different from everything before it. The frame is mostly black. At the edge of the flash, barely inside range, there is a figure, upright, 2 legs, narrow, moving quickly across the clearing and out of frame. The figure is wearing something. It is carrying something long over one shoulder. That is a person. And that is exactly right for this date, because by 12,000 years ago, people were here. Sheridan Cave, the same cave that produced the bear and the beaver, also produced a bone point, a tool, worked and shaped by hand from the same period. People and short-faced bears are in the same cave floor in Ohio. And the object from Sheridan Cave is worth describing, because it is small and it is the whole ending of this video. It is a point made of bone, shaped, smoothed, tapered at one end, the working tip of a weapon. Somebody sat down and made it. It was found in the same cave deposit as the extinct animals, which puts a person and a short-faced bear in the same layer of Ohio dirt. That is the moment this whole card is describing. Not people arriving after the animals were gone. People and the animals in the same frame, in the same year, in the same state. So the card ends with a year of animals, and then, at the very end, us. And the reason that order on the card matters is what happens next. Run that camera forward from that December, and within a few centuries, almost everything on this card is gone. The mastodon goes, the giant beaver goes. The stag moose, the short-faced bear, the peccaries, the ground sloth, all of them, in a window that lines up with a warming climate and with people spreading across the continent. The caribou survive by leaving, moving north with the cold. The only thing on the card that is still in Ohio today is the figure at the edge of the flash. And that is what makes this camera worth imagining rather than just listing extinct animals. The gap in time is not long. 12,000 years is about 600 generations. If you could stack up 600 grandmothers, the one at the far end is standing in a spruce forest watching a mastodon strip a tree. The Ohio landscape did not forget either. The bogs those animals died in are the same wet, low ground that farmers in Ohio still have to drain. The kettle lakes people fish in are the holes left by the ice that these animals lived alongside. And the reason mastodon bones keep coming out of golf course ponds and drainage projects is that the animals died in the soft ground, and the soft ground is still soft. So if you strapped a real trail camera to a real tree in Ohio tonight, you would get deer, raccoons, a coyote, maybe a black bear if you were in the southeast of the state. Deer and raccoons are what is left. 12,000 years ago, the same camera on the same spot would have filled the card in a week. Which of these would have scared you most on a card at 3 in the morning? The bear, the beaver, or the thing standing at the edge of the flash? Tell me in the comments and tell me what state you want the camera in next.